Enough is enough. The courtroom went silent as Janelle Brown's voice boomed with authority and definitiveness. This wasn't the reserved, patient Janelle supporters had watched for years on Sister Wives. This was a woman, refreshed, tired of excuses, lies, and manipulation. She wasn't there to beg. She wasn't there to plead. She was there to throw the knockout punch that would finally finish Kody and Robyn's dynasty. For years, the audience had seen Janelle give up everything for the so-called family dream. She poured her energy, her love, and more importantly, her money, millions of dollars, poured into creating the future that Kody had promised. But as Janelle toiled, labored, and bore the burden, Kody and Robyn lived it up in their high-end mansion, their security, and their little slice of heaven. And here, today, in this crowded courtroom, Janelle was not only fighting for herself, she was fighting for justice. For each time she was blown off, ignored, and made second best. And when she released the bombshell proof, her $2.7 million donation, the empire that Kody and Robyn had constructed started to shake. This was the moment. This was the confrontation everyone had been waiting for. The courtroom was hushed, so hushed you could hear the rustling of papers and the squeak of chairs as people shifted uncomfortably. The atmosphere was heavy, weighed down with tension. Everyone was aware this was more than just another court case. This was the final act of a long-running family melodrama, betrayal, and sacrifice. The stakes were not merely monetary. They were emotional, spiritual, and personal. And then it happened. Janelle Brown rose, pushed her glasses up her face, and released the words that would ring throughout the courtroom, throughout the internet, and into the hearts of fans everywhere. Enough is enough. The words were not screamed. They were not bellowed in rage. They were uttered solidly, steadily, with the resolve of a woman who had been quieted long enough. The tone itself made the room drop even more quiet. This was not a statement. This was a declaration. A line in the sand. The official end to years of being pushed to the side. For so long, Sister Wives fans had witnessed Janelle as the calm one, the peacemaker, the practical one. She wasn't the loudest voice in the room. She wasn't the most dramatic. She was the one who kept things stable while everything else appeared to crumble. But in this instant, she was changed. She stood taller, her eyes were sharper. She didn't resemble the woman who had once silently tolerated Kody's dismissals or Robyn's manipulations. She resembled someone who had at last discovered her breaking point, and had passed it. Years of bottled frustration, years of seeing her work go unseen, years of tolerating favoritism and betrayal, all of it was now churning its way through her speech. Kody Brown, typically quick with a quip, sat stunned, his mouth hung ajar, but no words escaped. That wasn't typical of him. Kody was the man who never had anything to say, who never spun the story his way, who never stole the spotlight. But as Janelle's voice rang out in the courtroom, he appeared taken aback. For once, he couldn't cut her off. For once, he couldn't write off her emotions as overreactions. For once, the attention wasn't his. They in the room talked of Kody's face flushing red, his jaw tightening, his hands clenching around the edge of the table, as if grasping for control. But no matter how hard he struggled, the control was being lost. Robyn, who sat next to him, wiped her eyes with a tissue. Her trademark tears that had a way of mollifying arguments, redirecting sympathy, and drawing Kody to her side. But here the tears did not belong. This wasn't a living room filled with family. This wasn't an intimate argument where Kody would get to be the hero and comfort her. This was a courtroom. And in the courtroom, proof was greater than feelings. The judge's gaze remained trained on Janelle, not Robyn, and for the first time, Robyn's tears did not warp the story. Folks in the courtroom leaned forward in their chairs. Some held their breaths. Even the attorneys, experienced and accustomed to high-drama cases, appeared momentarily swept up in the weight of the moment. You might sense that this was not simply about dollars. This was about justice. This was about dignity. This was about one woman finally finding her voice. The onlookers who had been tracking the Brown family story for decades understood that they were seeing history unfold. This was not a scripted episode of reality TV. This was real. This was true. Your Honor, Janelle went on, speaking steadily but with passion. For years I thought in terms of family commitment. I gave everything, my time, my energy, my money, because I believed that what we were creating was for everyone. But I was mistaken. What I gave became their security. What I sacrificed became their comfort, and I was left with nothing but broken promises. Gasp was heard in the room. She wasn't simply making a money claim. She was revealing the emotional betrayal behind it. She was translating years of unspoken hurt into words for the first time. Janelle didn't stop there. She described the picture of her path. Of working late hours, managing children, balancing responsibilities, all while dumping her wages into the family pot. She chronicled the many times she set aside her own aspirations because Kody's took precedence. She reminded the court of the real estate purchases, the companies, and the investments, all made on the promise that one day it would all be worth it. But while she kept it simple, pinching pennies and cutting corners, Robyn was living in a large mansion. Kody was spending his time and money wherever he pleased, favoring one wife over the others. And throughout it all, Janelle remained silent. Until today. The authority of this moment wasn't in the words. It was in the fact that Janelle was speaking them out loud, under oath, in front of a judge. This wasn't some intimate family disagreement that could be swept under a rug. This wasn't something that Kody could spin later on television. This was truth being told where it counted most. And with each sentence, the fissures in Kody and Robyn's empire widened. Although cameras were forbidden in the courtroom, news traveled like wildfire. Reporters posted updates on Twitter. Bloggers typed away. Social media followers lit up. Did you hear what Janelle just said? She finally stood up for herself. Kody's face must be priceless right now. It wasn't just a courtroom drama anymore. It was a cultural moment, a long-awaited victory for those who had cheered for Janelle from their living rooms for over a decade. At one point, Kody tried to interject. He leaned forward, pointing his finger, his voice rising in frustration. Your Honor, she's exaggerating. She's twisting things. She knew what she was signing up for. But before he could finish, the judge cut him off. Mr. Brown, you'll have your turn. Right now, it's her time to speak. The ensuing silence was clamorous. For the first time, Kody was instructed to sit. And for the first time, Janelle's voice wasn't being drowned out. As Janelle went on, her words bore the force of years of silence. Every sentence was more than evidence. It was cleansing. She wasn't talking only to the judge. She was talking to Kody, to Robyn, to her children, and to each viewer who had ever questioned her resilience. This was her history, her reality, and her time. And when she finally stopped talking, the room didn't merely listen to her, they felt her. That initial strong declaration, "Enough is enough," wasn't a setup line. It was the start of the end. It was the point at which Janelle became no longer the introverted wife. Nobody noticed but the defiant warrior who would take Kody and Robyn's kingdom down. The courtroom would continue to take witness, testimony, and arguments. But don't be mistaken, Janelle had won the room already. She had already regained her power. And in that moment, it became apparent, this was not merely a matter of law. This was justice long overdue being served. To grasp the gravity of this courtroom fight, you must go back. Janelle was always the pillar of the Brown family. As Kody leapt from wife to wife, in pursuit of drama and playing favorites, Janelle kept working. She worked diligently, kept the finances in order, and raised her children with quiet strength. Unlike Christine, who voiced her opinion, or Mary, who retreated, Janelle was the pragmatic one, the peacemaker. But beneath that serene facade was a woman sacrificing more than people knew. As the family began investing in businesses and real estate, Janelle was there, investing her paychecks. She had faith in Kody's grand visions, even when they were questionable. She believed in the one family, one future dream. She even sacrificed her financial autonomy at times, all in the interest of togetherness. Meanwhile, Robyn appeared on the scene. She arrived with tears, debt, and turmoil. And Kody rode in to save her. He purchased her a mansion, doted on her children, and catered to her happiness above all else. It was obvious to everyone but Kody that the imbalance was there. Janelle's kids noticed. Christine noticed. Fans noticed. But Janelle kept giving, hoping things would balance out. Instead, she found herself sidelined, both emotionally and financially. while Kody and Robyn built their empire. By the time Janelle stepped into that courtroom, she wasn't merely asking for money back. She was taking back years of sacrifice and deception. The courtroom might have been the backdrop for Janelle's fiery announcement, but the reality is that this story started much earlier than any judge ever became a part of it. To really comprehend why that moment was so potent, you have to turn back the clock, way back to the start of Janelle's journey with Kody Brown and the polygamous family utopia that initially promised so much. From the start, Janelle wasn't a free spirit who leaped into relationships without thinking. She was a practical, logical, measured person by nature. When she entered Kody's plural household, she wasn't blinded by fantasy or carried away by romance. She had faith in the concept of a common vision, a large, close-knit family that could develop and support each other, live a life of faith and togetherness. Where Christine had been the caretaker, and Mary had been the first wife with her own intricate relationship with Kody, Janelle became the anchor. She was employed, brought home an income, and quietly bore much of the load that made it possible for the family to get by during its early years. To her, every paycheck counted. Every dollar went towards the dream of one family, one future. She wasn't caring for herself alone. She was caring for everyone. The children, the wives, and even Kody. If the Brown family was a house, Janelle was the foundation. While Kody had grand visions, building land projects, new business ventures, an increased family, Janelle was the one who ensured the lights remained on, and bills got paid. She put in long hours, sometimes giving up family time with her children to keep the family finances afloat. She didn't grumble. She didn't demand favors. She felt it was her duty, her part in the larger picture. And for years, that was enough. She trusted Kody. She trusted the system. She trusted that all the compromises she was making would at some point come back to her and her children in the guise of stability, security, and fair opportunity. But trust, as she would find out, can be destructive when it isn't reciprocal. The watershed moment in the family dynamic came with the introduction of Robyn. When she met Kody, everything changed. Fans picked up on it. Christine picked up on it. Even Janelle, who usually worked hard not to be, couldn't help but notice the change. Kody's attention, his time, his money priorities, suddenly all were focused on Robyn. Robyn entered the family with financial troubles. She was in debt. She required assistance. And instead of trying to balance the needs of all four wives, Kody immersed himself in fixing Robyn's issues. He purchased a home for her. He paid off her debt. He invested his resources in making her and her kids comfortable. While Janelle continued to work, continued to sacrifice, and continued to support the family aspiration. But now, that aspiration wasn't as cohesive as it had once seemed. It was uneven, slanted one way, toward Robyn's stability. Over time, the disparity became more distinct. Robyn's children enjoyed more privileges. Robyn's life was easier. And though Mary and Christine had their own struggles, Janelle suffered the worst of the financial disparity. Her labor was being devoured to maintain a system that no longer valued her equally. She sat back and watched as her own children were given less attention, less support, with Robyn's children being groomed like they were the priority. And although she remained quiet in public, in private the cracks were beginning to show. It was no longer just emotional neglect. It was financial betrayal. Fans tended to see Janelle as the calm one, the one who didn't make waves. But what many didn't know was that her silence wasn't acceptance. It was survival. She had 6 kids to tend to. She had duties that didn't stop just because Kody was leaning towards someone else. So she bit her tongue, smiled in front of the cameras, and continued working. But secretly resentment accumulated. She had invested years of work, millions of dollars, and untold sacrifices into the family's future. And what did she have to show for it? While Robyn resided in a large mansion, Janelle frequently found herself having to get by on less. Her children picked up on it, too. They observed the way their mother was treated, the way their father favored one home over another. And that hurt more than any discrepancy in finances. Each person has his or her breaking point, even someone as placid as Janelle. For her, it wasn't something that happened one time. It was the slow build. It was the small things. Kody dismissing her, not recognizing her sacrifices, excusing why Robyn's needs always took precedent. It was the large things, the ongoing favoritism, the unequal allocation of resources, the open disregard for her work. By the time the family encountered their latest difficulties, Janelle had already hit rock bottom. The court case wasn't the end. It was the last in a series of events that had been escalating for years. What startled many was not only the emotional abandonment, but the financial reality that emerged. Janelle had paid millions of dollars into the family, money she made, money she invested, money she assumed would go towards the good of all. But when the books were pulled, it became apparent a lot of that money had been paid out for securing Kody and Robyn's future, not hers. While she struggled, they prospered. While she gave up, they gained. And the imbalance wasn't only unjust, it was heartbreaking. For onlookers, some may wonder, why did she not leave earlier? Why endure all of this? The answer is easy. Janelle believed. She believed in the family dream. She believed in equity. She believed in Kody's promises. And when his promises were broken, she still attempted to make everything work for her children. But the courtroom wasn't about the money. It was about closure. It was about finally being able to hold Kody and Robyn accountable for all of those years of favoritism, manipulation, and betrayal. It was about taking back her power, after being quieted for so long. The path to that courtroom moment wasn't an easy one. It was lined with late nights of anxiety, of tears cried in secret, of talks with her children about fairness, about worth, about respect. It was lined with the crushing weight of understanding she had given everything to someone who never appreciated it at all. And still, in spite of it all, Janelle didn't shatter. She didn't disintegrate. She became stronger. By the time she stood in that courtroom, she was not merely a woman requesting money back. She was a warrior requiring justice. What makes Janelle's journey so compelling is what it symbolizes. It's not just the story of one woman leaving a broken marriage. It's the story of every woman who has ever been overlooked, undervalued, or pushed aside. It's the story of patience giving way to power, of quiet strength transforming into bold action. And it's the story of how truth, no matter how long it takes, always rises to the surface. By the end of session 2 of her journey, something was certain. The courtroom fight was not merely about recovering $2.7 million. It was about recovering years of dignity lost. Janelle had traveled a long, agonizing road to arrive at this point. And now, she was ready to make Kody and Robyn pay. The courtroom tension was palpable. The cameras were not permitted, but eyewitness reports circulated rapidly, and fans outside listened to every detail. Janelle's attorney was ready. They brought a mountain of evidence. Bank records detailing Janelle's direct payments, land titles documenting her financial contribution to the family properties, witness statements that detailed how much she spent while Robyn and Kody reaped the benefits. Each paper was a dagger to Kody's case. Kody, not one to give up, attempted to discredit. He got loud, pointing fingers, blaming the system, blaming Christine, even blaming Janelle herself for misunderstanding the family plan. But the judge wasn't having it. Each time he attempted to spin the story, Janelle's attorney fought back with cold, hard facts. Robyn, however, relied on her go-to method: tears. She wept, said she never intended to hurt anybody, said she believed the money was for all of us. But even her tears couldn't wash away the figures in black and white. The judge was not fooled. For once, the charm of Kody and the tears of Robyn were not sufficient. The courtroom was not television. It was a hall of truth, and the truth was horrific for them. The courthouse was filled. Reporters lined the corridor, their cameras flashing every time a notable figure went in or out of the room. Sister Wives fans, who had been following the saga of the Brown family for more than a decade now, thronged outside bearing signs of solidarity for Janelle, even posters that read, "Justice for Janelle," and "Fairness, not favoritism." Inside, the air was charged. Wooden benches groaned as viewers strained forward, not wishing to miss one word. The judge, a resolute but controlled figure, looked around at the crowded room with piercing eyes, already sensing this was no ordinary case about money. It was about betrayal, family, and justice. At the table's center sat Janelle, her back straight, her face a mask. Opposite her, Kody stiffly sat, jaw tight, eyes flashing with barely held rage. Fidgeting by his side was Robyn, tissues already clutched in her hand, prepared to assume her well-rehearsed role. This wasn't reality television anymore. This was actually real life. And there wasn't any editing, no cameras cutting away, no opportunity to rewrite history. Janelle, quote, as the attorney rose, his voice firm and steady. Your Honor, today we will show evidence that demonstrates my client Janelle Brown brought substantial funds, more than $2.70 million, to the assets of the family, only to be denied the benefits while the defendants, Kody and Robyn Brown, bought comfort for themselves. There was a hush in the courtroom. Everyone suspected money was at the center of the family feud. But hearing the amount, $2.70 million, uttered out struck with a clap of thunder. The attorney strode over to the table containing evidence and started placing papers on it. Bank statements, property deeds, receipts, and transaction records. The fat pile of documents crashed down, resounding throughout the quiet room. This, the attorney went on, waving a packet of transfers, demonstrates years of payments that my client made personally, money that was supposed to go for the family as a whole. But instead, these monies were utilized disproportionately to purchase an extravagant home and economic security for Robyn Brown, while putting Janelle and her children at a disadvantage. Eyes were fixed on Robyn, who wrapped her tissue tightly around her fingers, blinking fiercely. Kody just couldn't handle it. He slammed his fist on the table, causing everyone to jump. This is absurd, he growled. She knew what she was getting herself into. This was our family plan. She's spinning things to make me out to be the villain. The judge raised an eyebrow. Mr. Brown, you'll have your turn to speak. Please remain seated and let the evidence be presented. Kody's face turned crimson, but he forced himself back into his chair. Still, he muttered under his breath, his frustration visible to everyone. For the first time, his voice, the voice that had monopolized family gatherings, muzzled opposition, and twisted every debate, wasn't dominant. The courtroom wasn't his theater. As papers mounted higher and higher, Robyn finally released a quiet sob. I didn't mean to make it unbalanced, she spoke, her words shaking. I thought we were doing this for all of us. I thought we were constructing for the entire family. She wiped at her eyes, gazing in the direction of the judge with an air of powerlessness. It was the same strategy she'd employed hundreds of times in family negotiations, and frequently successfully. But here, the response was not the same. The judge refused to soften. The attorney did not hesitate. The evidence was too distinct, too precise, too incriminating. Mrs. Brown, the attorney replied with a calm tone, whether inadvertent or not. The fact remains that your home benefited directly from my client's efforts while she was denied equal protection. Intentions do not undo fiscal reality. The sobs didn't stop, but they were empty. For the first time, the tears weren't retelling the narrative. The judge looked at her over the rim of his glasses. What I observe here, he declared, is a pattern. A pattern wherein one party consistently put in large resources, and the other parties consistently benefited. This court does not care about family soap operas. It cares about fairness, and the papers that have been submitted so far give cause to wonder how fair this deal really was. The impact of those words was heavy. Kody moved restlessly, obviously angry that his normal charm wasn't impressing the brass in the room. Robyn dropped her eyes, covering behind her tissue. Meanwhile, Janelle sat firm, her arms folded in front of her. She did not smirk. She did not gloat. She did not anger. She just looked relieved. Relieved that at last, someone with actual authority was receiving the truth she had lived for years. To compound things for Kody and Robyn, witnesses started coming forward. One of the family's former financial advisors testified about Janelle, describing how she had consistently been the biggest contributor to the family accounts. She worked unstintingly, always making sure deposits were made, even when she didn't have as much to spare. Meanwhile, it was often decided to favor one home over another. A second witness, a family friend, also talked about the disparity in living arrangements. Everybody knew Robyn had the best house, the most help, the most attention. It was clear. And it didn't feel right to a lot of us, considering how much Janelle was sacrificing. Every witness statement was another fillip to the coffin of Kody and Robyn's case. Kody was now nearly seething with rage. He rose suddenly during a recess, striding around the defense table, voice loud enough for observers to hear. "This is all a lie. Janelle is out to ruin me. She's bitter. And she's dragging us through the dirt because she's jealous of what I have with Robyn." But even his tantrum worked against him. Reporters in the public gallery took notes, recording every word. Headlines were already being written. Kody Brown meltdown in court and judge scolds Brown patriarch as evidence mounts. He wasn't aware of it, but every syllable he uttered, every furious gesture, only served to deepen the picture of a man scrambling to maintain control he was already out of. "I couldn't have been more different," Janelle never raising her voice. She responded to queries, clearly, briefly, and with unassailable credibility. Questioned on her financial input, she gave precise amounts, dates and reasons. "I never demanded special treatment," she said once. "All I ever wanted was equity. All I ever wanted was for my sacrifices to count as much as anyone else's." Her serenity was unnerving. Her poise was intimidating. And in that courtroom she didn't have to fight. She could just speak the truth. Meanwhile, outside the courthouse, supporters blew their lids whenever new information was revealed. Fans live-tweeted responses, with #Justice for Janelle and #Kody exposed, trending within hours. Footage of analysts dissecting the case went viral. One critic bluntly stated, "This isn't just a court case. It's the collapse of Kody's narrative. For years he dictated the story. But in this courtroom facts outweigh spin." As the day went on and piece after piece of evidence mounted against them, there was a noticeable change in Kody and Robyn's attitude. Kody, who had been hot-headed and argumentative, started to seem deflated, slumping into his seat. Robyn's tears slowed, to be replaced by a nervously blank stare. They knew what everybody else did. The reality was inescapable. The walls of their empire, constructed upon privilege and dominance, were coming tumbling down right before their very eyes. And Janelle, she sat higher than ever. Not out of a desire for vengeance, but because she had finally been heard. By the time the gavel came down to adjourn the day's proceedings, one thing was certain: the battle in that courtroom wasn't strictly legal. It was symbolic. It was the moment that Kody and Robyn's family narrative lost its hold. It was the moment everyone witnessed, with irreducible clarity, the woman who'd been the quiet backbone all along, and the man who'd underestimated her. The courtroom confrontation was more than theatrics. It was justice in action, and it was merely the starting point for Kody and Robyn's disintegration. When the verdict arrived, the room breathed with anticipation. The voice of the judge was calm, firm, and absolute. "Kody and Robyn owe Janelle Brown $2.7 million. The words resonated like thunder. Kody had a look of shock for a second. His jaw clenched, his fists were held tight, his face reddened with anger. Robyn had a fit of uncontrollable sobs, her face hidden in her hands. The empire they had built, the wealth they had accumulated, the favoritism they had paraded, was now breaking wide open. And Janelle, she didn't rub it in. She didn't gloat. She just exhaled, her shoulders finally released from the burden she had been carrying for so long. This wasn't greed. This wasn't revenge. This was fairness. Reclaiming what was hers. For years fans had pleaded to witness Janelle rise up, to see her demand her worth. And now, in this moment of sheer power, she had done just that. The verdict was worth more than money. It was a public announcement. Janelle counted. Her sacrifices counted. Her truth counted. The courtroom was thick with silence. The silence that weighs on your chest and has each heartbeat resonate like a drum. After days of testimony, mountains of evidence, and endless anticipation, the time had come. Everyone in the audience leaned forward, held breaths, ready for the gavel to come down. The judge nodded, adjusting his glasses, his voice firm and measured. "This is a case of fairness. It is a case of good faith contributions. And about what was done with those contributions by whom. The facts are not in question. Mrs. Janelle Brown contributed substantial sums of money to what was purported to be a joint family fund. Those funds were diverted, in disproportionate benefit to Mr. and Mrs. Brown, Kody and Robyn at Janelle's expense." Gasps of shock swept through the courtroom. While everyone had suspected it, to hear the words coming from the mouth of the judge was shocking. The judge went on, reading from his papers with accuracy. "This court has carefully examined all evidence presented, financial statements, witness depositions, and contractual documents. The aggregate donations made by Mrs. Janelle Brown come out to about $2.7 million. The defendants cannot reasonably argue otherwise. In contention is whether the money was for joint contribution or for investment in hopes of fair return. Kody leaned forward, his red face clenched in a jaw so tight that it seemed to hurt. Robyn held onto his arm, her tissue already damp. The judge's gaze shifted to them briefly, before settling back on his documents. What is certain is that Mrs. Janelle Brown rendered these contributions in reliance on promises of fairness, promises of mutual advantage, promises of security, promises breached. The words struck like sledgehammer blows. Kody leapt up from his seat, unable to hold back. Your Honor, that's not true. She offered it willingly. She understood that it was for the family. She's manipulating facts to punish me because she quit. She's bitter. This is payback in full. Murmurs swept through the courtroom, reporters scrambling to write. The gavel of the judge came down. Bam! Sit down, Mr. Brown. This is not a forum for outbursts. You will get your time to be heard formally. Do not interrupt this court again. Kody gasped for air, then slumped back into his chair with a crash. For once his thundering voice did not fill the room. The judge cleared his throat, his tone more pointed now. This court cannot turn a blind eye to the disparity caused by these actions. The defendants profited from money they didn't match, leaving Mrs. Brown with financial uncertainty, in spite of her great contribution. This is unfair, and this court will not stand for it. A moment. The entire room leaned in, anticipating the blow. It is the finding of this court that Kody Brown and Robyn Brown are together liable to pay Mrs. Janelle Brown $2.7 million. $2.7 million. The courtroom erupted. Gasps, murmurings, even some cheers filled the gallery before the bailiff yelled for order. But the message was unmistakable. Janelle had won. Janelle, quote, seen eyes closed for a moment, relief washing over her in a wave. It wasn't greed. It wasn't revenge. It was justice. Justice for finally being acknowledged after all those years of sacrifice. Her attorney nodded to her silently, mouthing, "You did it." Kody, however, resembled a man whose whole world had been taken away from beneath his feet. His face was white now. The anger had seeped away into shock. He shook his head, repeating under his breath, "This isn't happening. This isn't happening." Robyn sobbed openly, covering her face with her hands. "We don't have that kind of money. We can't pay that." But the judge was not moved. "Mrs. Brown, your financial security has been maintained for years, by monies which were not entirely yours. It is only just that restitution be made." Reporters rushed out of the courtroom, the first to report the news. Janelle wins $2.70 million judgment against Kody and Robyn. Courtroom bombshell. Sister wives' financial secrets exposed. Outside, the supporters' crowd cheered. Through the air came chants of justice for Janelle. Fans hugged one another and wept with tears of happiness, as if they had experienced personally her struggle. Within, Kody and Robyn bent in close, their whispers boiling with intensity. Their attorney inched in close, her words low but insistent. No whisper could change the fact. The verdict was absolute. For a decade, Kody had been the patriarch, the decider, the one who called the shots regarding how the family's funds were spent. Janelle had been the unobtrusive contributor, the one who bore weight without ado. But here in this courtroom, the situation had been turned around. The man who had insisted on loyalty and obedience was now helpless, and the woman who had been underestimated was now vindicated. The $2.7 million verdict wasn't just money, it was a symbol, a declaration that Janelle's sacrifices mattered, that her years of financial discipline and quiet strength were not invisible. Later, as the courtroom emptied, whispers spread about what happened in the hallway. Kody was overheard shouting at his lawyer, his voice echoing down the corridor. "This is a setup. They twisted everything. I'll appeal this. I'll fight this until my last breath." Robyn held onto his arm, crying, "Kody, please, we can't fight this. It's too much. What are we going to do?" But Kody's pride wouldn't permit him to quit. His business was going under, and in his head, Janelle's win wasn't just a legal loss. It was a personal violation. While Janelle exited the courtroom by a side door, attended by her attorney and a couple of close friends, She didn't lift her arms in glory or bask in the triumph. She merely smiled weakly, her eyes welling up with tears she forced not to fall. "It's over," she whispered to herself softly. Finally, it's over. That was her gift. She didn't have to scream, didn't have to brag. Her win told the tale. In a matter of hours, the news consumed headlines across the globe. Talk shows argued back and forth about the verdict. Social media went wild. Hashtags such as #JusticeServed, #TeamJanelle, and #CodyCrush trended at light speed. Commentators broke down every side. Some perceived it as a victory for feminism, the docile wife taking a stand against the patriarch. Others labeled it karma, the long-sought revenge for years of preferential treatment. Videos of Janelle peacefully walking out of the courthouse went viral. One viral tweet captured it all perfectly. "She entered with truth. She exited with justice." Janelle just rewrote the book of sister wives forever. But also lurking beneath the excitement was a sense of acknowledgement of the hurt behind it all. This wasn't merely about money. It was about broken promises, broken trust, and broken families. Janelle had lost more than dollars. She had lost years of her life believing in a unity dream that never actually existed. Kody and Robyn, in the meantime, had to accept that the world no longer had any faith in their story. The sympathy they had long been accorded was gone, replaced by mockery and contempt. With the courthouse deserted and the dust starting to settle, one thing became certain. This verdict brought an era to a close. The patriarch had been brought low. The kingdom of dominance had been broken. And the once silent partner, now the winner. Justice wasn't merely served, it was televised, transmitted, and made eternal in headlines that would haunt Kody and Robyn for the remainder of their lives. And for Janelle, it wasn't simply a matter of winning dollars. It was about claiming back her voice, her power, and her dignity. But here's the thing. Janelle's actual triumph wasn't the $2.7 million. It was freedom. She emerged from that courthouse not only with justice in her corner, but with her dignity fully intact. She no longer needed to struggle for morsels of attention from Kody. She no longer needed to stand idly by while Robyn got everything, and she got nothing. Viewers went wild online, filling up social media with cheering, applause, and tears of happiness. They referred to it as the end of Kody's control. The day Janelle got her crown, and the most satisfying sister wives twist ever. Christine, now finally free of Kody's hold, broke the news in secret with her own family. Even Mary, usually quiet and reserved, was said to have reached out in wordless solidarity. The women divided before were gradually discovering common ground in their very survival. As for Kody and Robyn, their kingdom was rocked to its foundation. The loss of money was staggering, but the real damage was to their reputation. The world saw them now for what they truly were, manipulators driven by favoritism, who had exploited the very people who helped craft their so-called family success. Janelle, though, wasn't bitter. She wasn't looking to destroy. She was looking for peace. And now, with justice accomplished, she could at last live life on her own terms, with her children and a future that were hers. The gavel came down. The fight was done. And the message was clear. Janelle ended it all. And justice was finally served. The courtroom decision didn't merely conclude a legal fight. It exploded like a bomb in the Browns' lives. The reverberations extended far beyond four walls and gavel ring. The sister wives' family had acted out its drama for years, with Kody at the helm, dictating the narrative. But following the $2.7 million verdict, that narrative was no longer his to write. It was Janelle's. And the fallout rocked every corner of the Brown Empire. Within hours of the ruling by the judge, the ripple effect started. News crews descended upon the courthouse steps, taking reactions from fans, attorneys, and pundits. Footage of Kody's face turning red in the course of the hearing went viral like a wildfire on social media. "Watch him lose it," one observer wrote on a viral livestream. For years he dictated the narrative. Now deprived of that control, we witnessed the actual Kody Brown, desperate, furious, cornered. Robyn's face, streaked with tears, also went viral, though the internet was considerably less kind. Memes swamped Twitter and Instagram. Images of her crying were titled with acidic sarcasm. Tears don't pay $2.7 million. The meticulously contrived portrait of Kody and Robyn as the favorites was in shambles. Aside from prying eyes, Robyn descended into chaos. The woman who had thought she'd gained security in her marriage to Kody could now only see doubt. In the dead of night, panicked whispers echoed through their Flagstaff mansion. Kody, what are we going to do? We don't have the money. We can't sell this house. It's all we have. But Kody, consumed by pride, refused to bend. We'll fight it, we'll appeal. Janelle doesn't deserve a dime. Robyn's sobs grew sharper. You don't get it, do you? The court doesn't care about your speeches. This isn't family council. This is real. Their union, once vaunted as inviolable, now strained beneath the suffocating pressure of reality. For Kody, the decision was more than a monetary setback. It was an assault on his self-image. He had constructed his persona as the patriarch, the man in charge, the one who dictated how things flowed. Losing in such a public, humiliating fashion destroyed that facade. Neighbors said they heard screaming arguments emanating from within his house in the days following the verdict. He ranted to anyone who would hear him. Friends, attorneys, even strangers at coffee houses. She betrayed me. After all I did for her, she stabbed me in the back. Janelle wouldn't have a dime if it weren't for me. But his rage rang empty now. For the first time, the public wasn't swallowing it. His charm, once magnetic in front of the camera, now appeared to be arrogance. His rage no longer struck fear. His rage made people laugh. Meanwhile, Janelle went her own way. Instead of rubbing it in, she went quietly, concentrating on healing. She made only one calm reaction to the media. This wasn't about hurting anyone. It was about rightness. I sacrificed so much for so long, and I just wanted what was fair. Now I can go forward. That one sentence played on talk shows nationwide. It framed her not as vengeful, but as upright. Supporters jumped to her defense, calling her a force of determination. And Janelle set out to rebuild. She reunited with her adult children, seeing them without the looming shadow of Kody's dominance. She started making plans for her own businesses. Financial seminars, women's empowerment seminars, even rumors of a book deal. For the first time in years, she was creating her own narrative. The Browns' children were not quiet either. Numerous had endured years of imbalance, observing their mother giving and others benefiting. One of Janelle's sons allegedly said to a friend, "Mom finally got what she deserved. She's held this family together forever," while Dad privileged Robyn. It's about time someone acknowledged that. Christine, who had already distanced herself from Kody, publicly voiced support. In a livestream she smiled and said, "I'm so proud of Janelle. She's one of the strongest women I've ever known. And this verdict proves what we've all known for years. Her sacrifices were real." The family was broken, long concealed beneath the facade of plural unity, now completely revealed. The $2.7 million was not only a figure, it was a sledgehammer blow. Kody and Robyn rushed to devise a method of compensation. Whispers flew of them selling their house, selling parcels of land in Flagstaff, even tapping retirement funds. But the budgetary sink was profound. Analysts predicted that bankruptcy was a looming possibility if they were not able to quickly unload assets. For a man who had once bragged about having an empire, the image of him sinking under debt was poetic justice in the eyes of many fans. TV entertainment gorged on the melodrama. Headlines screamed across all media. Kody and Robyn directed to pay millions. Brown empire implosion. From patriarch to punchline. Kody's courtroom setback. Janelle's steadfast strength emerges victorious in $2.7 million ruling. Daytime television shows were questioning if the verdict represented a new cultural wave, the resurgence of women taking back power in toxic relationships. Feminist authors celebrated Janelle as a symbol of survival and justice. Tabloids meanwhile enjoyed Kody and Robyn's demise, describing them as greedy, manipulative, and self-delusional about their own destruction. Viewers had been criticizing Kody's favoritism towards Robyn for years, but now those complaints went mainstream. Even his former fans deserted him. Social media was abuzz with tweets such as "Kody built his empire on Janelle's back. Now she gets the last word." Robyn cried her way into a mansion. Now she can cry her way into paying $2.7 million. This verdict isn't just legal, it's karma. The change was inevitable. Where Kody previously demanded attention, now he was the target of ridicule. The real strength of the verdict wasn't the money, it was what it meant. The equation of power had been reversed. Janelle, who had long been underrated, was now higher than ever. Kody, who previously wielded dominance like a weapon, was now deprived of it in front of the whole world. The Brown family narrative was always one of control, sacrifice, and imbalance. The courtroom rewrote the ending though. Weeks went by, and what had once been a grand vision of the Brown Empire now resembled ruins. Land at Coyote Pass remained undeveloped, representing promises unkept. The family brand, which was once a profitable reality TV spectacle, was in shambles as fans boycotted Kody and Robyn. Meanwhile, doors opened for Janelle and Christine, whose independence and truthfulness struck a chord with viewers. They were on podcasts, working together on projects and empowering women who had gone through similar ordeals. The dynasty Kody attempted to maintain with control was no more. Instead, something new was brewing. A tale not of the control of one man but of women taking back their voice. One photo, taken weeks later, captured it all. Janelle outside a Utah coffee shop, giggling with her daughters, her shoulders loose, her face aglow, her smile unencumbered. Kody was seen later, days later, at a gas station, leaning against his truck, his eyes sunken, his face scrunched, mumbling into his phone. The proud patriarch brought low. The contrast spoke volumes. The narrative would be rehashed for years, not merely as gossip, not merely as tabloid sensationalism, but as a lesson that even years of overshadowing, underestimating, and undervaluing justice will come. Maybe it takes a while, maybe it takes a sacrifice, but when it does, it alters everything. And for Janelle, the woman who had once quietly borne the brunt of the family, the verdict was not merely about money. It was about freedom. It was about acceptance. It was about standing in the light at last.